Welcome back to the James and Dame Show, where we are coming up on the last week of football for the season, where we're going to have the Super Bowl.
I hate how it went or how
we got
here, but I'm still going to watch it. But what do you want to lead off into? Do you want to talk about news to the Super Bowl, or do we want to go over other things such as the Pro Bowl?
Was there even anything of note from the Pro Bowl?
Not really. I mean, I did see a couple things such as what was it? It was a very high-scoring flag football game.
64 to 59.
Something like that, yeah. It was
NFC.
really high scoring, so it was just like, makes sense.
Yeah, I guess not much from the Pro Bowl.
I could care less about the Pro Bowl. They destroyed the Pro Bowl. It used to just be a competition between the AFC and the NFC and just regular old football. And now it's a bunch of other things that really what the Pro Bowl should not be.
Well, the issue was when it was just football is the issue. People stopped playing for injury reasons. They decided to just not play the game anymore. Mm-hmm. Like the players, they were just the tackling was nothing.
Issue.
So they decided, and people were complaining then. So they're trying to find a solution. They haven't found one. I think there are some interesting ones. Dodgeball's kind of interesting. The precision passing one.
That one's pretty good.
I like that one.
I'm fine with the skill-based contest, but you got to have a full-on football game. That's the point of the NFL.
I don't think they'll be able to get people to play it though.
Yeah, I know, but that's what I'm saying. It's not what it used to be anymore because of that whole reason, which sucks.
Yeah, but I don't know. News surrounding the upcoming Super Bowl. The 49ers have had complaints about their practice facility because they had the Chiefs got the fancy indoor Raiders facility, and the 49ers got stuck with UNLV's practice facility, which is outdoor.
Mm-hmm.
And it rained apparently recently, so their field their practice turf field, whatever, is in poor condition right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how much. I don't know. People will argue NFL biases. I have no idea how they determined which team got which facility. I don't know if it was AFC. They already determined AFC got one and the NFC gets one. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me because Raiders are an AFC team, so
yeah,
whatever. But 49ers had some complaining, but
it's a fair complaint because treatment-wise, that wasn't very fair. But also, there's only so many practice fields. So.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's tough. But the 49ers are carrying out practice anyways. Hopefully, no injuries or anything. Hopefully, that doesn't hinder it too much. It's going to put a tiny asterisk on the game regardless. Because 49ers lose, people are going to be like, because they didn't get a good practice field. And it's like, well, yeah. But
apparently they were so dissatisfied that they considered flying back to Santa Clara to practice before the Monday night media event. That's how bad it was.
I mean, I would if you have a shitty practice facility, and you're only in Santa Clara, honestly, I would consider just flying back and practicing in your professional facility.
I don't blame them. It's just, I see this title: Chiefs refuse to let the Niners use Super Bowl practice facility, but how much did Kansas City actually prevented them? I don't think that happened.
Well, if I were the Chiefs, I wouldn't. If you have the nicer facility, You want that upper advantage. I don't like
Yes,
if it was
but
me, I'd be like, no, you don't. You want a nicer facility than we have? No, no, suck it.
yeah,
Get
but
five.
then the argument comes back was this: if you want a fair game, both teams got to at least trade it out, right? Like they get it one day, the other team gets it the other day. Like that's how I see it, but
That's just no. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, you want the advantage. So just be like, no.
you're not listening to me. I'm saying no. I'm saying that if you want people to stop complaining about how the NFL is rigging games or just plain out supporting the Chiefs and everything, maybe like at least let them have the facility for like one day or something like that. Just trade it off. Like that's super easy. Let them have the outdoor facility one day and then they can trade it off and everything. It's not hard to do. I don't know why they're not doing that, but
Yeah, but that's how it's said. And like I'm saying, the Chiefs are going to be like, no, I don't care what the media says. The NFL is trying to figure it out, but it is what it is. But if you're the Chiefs and they're like, oh, 49ers want permission to, no, I don't care what the media says. I'll take the advantage. That's what they're going to do regardless. So anything that the Chiefs can veto to give that would help the 49ers, anything they can veto, they're going to veto.
mm-hmm.
So it's just taking advantage of it. They're not going to sit there and be like, oh, no, we want a fair game.
Yeah.
No.
That's true.
Same thing with injuries. But
Yeah. On like the brighter side of things, I did see a couple things regarding some interviews. Mahomes, he was asked about like, will he get to like a very successful career standing point like Brady did and everything. He says that that 7 seemed like it was a long ways away, particularly because of how long Tom Brady was in the NFL. He says, I'll let you know in like, what was it, 11 years or whatever it was, whenever he's still in the NFL, whatever he said. But sure, their stats in the first 5 years is very interesting comparative-wise, but you can never say that Mahomes will have as successful or even a more successful career than Brady just by looking at the first 5 to 6 years.
well, and then the thing looking at Brady to Mahomes is Mahomes would have to be, well, he wouldn't have to be because again, you don't know what's going to happen every single year, but Brady was he was consistently on one of the best teams in the NFL, but he had a drought when it came to actually winning a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Because he was, he got, was it 2 or 3 in his first couple of years? And then he went almost a decade without winning one.
Yeah, that's true. People keep forgetting about that, is that as successful as Tom Brady was, he didn't win that many he could have won more Super Bowls.
Oh, yeah.
But if it wasn't for the Giants twice and
however many AFC
Eagles,
championships he's lost,
there's so many what ifs if Brady was just, there was
just
one thing
better.
that changed, then
if he was just better. No.
if he was just better.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because it's like that Mahomes could have more because Mahomes could play if he plays as long, or maybe not even as long, but if he doesn't have that 10-year, and that's not saying that like Brady sucked during that time. He still was on one of the best teams, but it's just winning a Super Bowl is hard.
Going back there all the time is hard.
Yeah, and the Patriots had a really good team. I think the thing that's going to kind of hinder Mahomes is Brady had Gronk. Mahomes has Kelsey, but he's not going to have Kelsey for long.
Yeah.
Because he's towards the end of his career. Brady got Gronk during his career, so he had more time. Belichick was younger than when they started than Andy Reid is now. Andy Reid is now in the conversation of when is he going to retire?
Yeah, but
he's not going to be there.
Along that statement, this title says is that he's basically dismissing any retirement things going around. He's just saying that you're not going to know when it's time, but today is not the day that I'm going to retire. That's basically what he said, and which is also fine because it's you can't say, oh, this is the exact date when I'm retiring. No, he's just going to retire whenever he feels like it or whenever it's time to go home and.
Yeah, retirement's weird.
Yeah,
And
it is a funny thing because it's like, how old is Reed now? He's
70s, isn't he?
Yeah, I thought so.
Isn't he like 70? But and again, I'm not saying that him and Kelsey are gonna retire this year, or even next year, the next 2 years. But it's not going to be. You're not gonna have 65? Yeah,
He is 65 years old.
You're not gonna have 20 years of Reed, Mahomes, and Kelsey.
Yeah.
Like Kelsey and Reed are gonna move on some point in the next decade.
Yeah.
It's Kelsey especially in the next decade. Reed, I hope, and sometime soon for his own health.
Yeah.
But Mahomes, and it'll depend on who the incoming coach is, if he stays with the Chiefs, what kind of team they pitch together. But he's proven that he has the ability to. He has that playmaking ability that Brady has, where it's regardless of the team or at least the offense that you put out there, he can still get wins to take him to a playoff game, and from there, even if the team's bad, he has the clutchness to at least make it interesting and a question if he's going to make it back to a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's not, Tom Brady's last year, where it's oh, he's not going to make it back to the Super Bowl.
No.
But
especially with how battered that team was his last year.
It was that year and maybe his first year of his career where they were
really bad.
But then other than that, it was everything in between.
It was pretty consistent.
They made the playoffs every year. He had a bye almost every single year. Or at least most of them. They were always a Super Bowl contender. And I don't know. I think with Patrick Mahomes, whoever has him for the future, we'll have to see him without Andy Reid. Because
that's another thing. That's what I'm concerned about, is that if Andy Reid does retire in the next year, 2 years, 3 years maybe, how's that going to shape for Mahomes? Because it's, like you said, you're not going to have him forever. What kind of coach is he going to get? Is that coach going to be able to adapt to Mahomes' playing style, or are they going to get along?
Or is he just gonna leave if Reed retires? Maybe Reed retires and he's maybe. All right, I want out. I want to go to. Who knows who's gonna be good at the time? Maybe it'll be the freaking Chargers, and they'll be I want to go to the
Chargers. Get.
Now they'll have Justin Herbert. They'll be fine.
Yeah, they're fine. But
the point being is he could go anywhere, and we don't know who that would be. But I don't think you'll see him in 20 years still on the Chiefs. I'd be surprised. He could.
If he is still in the Chiefs in the next 10 years, I would honestly be surprised, because it's you can't consistently be with a team for that long without having some. It's very hard to stay at one team for your entire career, because what was it? There are some notable names that did stick with their team until the end of their career. For example, Larry Fitzgerald. He stayed with the Cardinals for his entire career. Didn't get anything out of it, but my point still is. He's in. Yeah.
Well, I think quarterback is a different argument, though, because if you look at the last generation of quarterbacks, you had Big Ben, who was there the whole time, Phillip Rivers, who was there most of the time. Aaron Rodgers just had his first season out of Green Bay. Tampa Bay took Tom Brady took 2 years, 3 years?
3 years.
3 years out of Foxborough, out of a 23-year career?
Yeah.
So
22, 23, yeah, something like that.
It's not it's a quarterback like Mahomes could spend at least 10 years at the Chiefs, but he could go upwards of 15 because some do spend that amount of time, some of the good ones. Drew Brees spent his entire career at the Saints. It's for quarterbacks, I think it's a little bit easier, and I think it's also easier for the coach or the team, if you're that good, like Mahomes is, to be we're gonna throw out the money, because franchise quarterback means a lot more than franchise receiver or franchise running back, especially. Those things are
that is another big thing. So, we'll see. I'm curious to see what it'll look like 5 years in the future, especially with how the league will change. But, yeah, More things. I did see a couple of things where Mahomes and Purdy were asked to do their impressions. Mahomes specifically for Kermit the Frog, and what was Purdy? Oh shoot, it was.
I don't know about a voice thing. I know that a lot of people say he looks like some chick.
I knew that thing was blown up on the internet. I'm just talking about because Purdy was supposed to give like a good like voice impression at one point as well. I just don't remember who it was. Oh, it's gonna annoy me if I don't know what it is.
I did see the Patrick Mahomes one just like recently, where it's just, can you do your best impression of Kermit the Frog? I'm talking right now.
SpongeBob.
This is it. Who?
It was SpongeBob.
Why? That has okay. I feel like the Kermit one is charged because people say he sounds like Kermit the Frog, kind of because he's got that like. Ironically, he kind of sounds like he has a frog in his throat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Me personally, I don't think Brock Purdy sounds like SpongeBob. So I think that's probably.
I think that was just more of like you give an impression.
Well, and there's the whole Nickelodeon coverage of the Super Bowl and
That's
everything,
right,
and SpongeBob's gonna be covering it. I don't know how they're. I haven't.
It's probably going to be the similar thing with how it was in the playoffs a few years ago.
Yeah, well, they do it every year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
they don't do it at the Super Bowl usually. So
no, this is new. They usually do it at the playoffs. So.
God, I don't want to touch Nickelodeon though. It's such. I mean, when I think of Nickelodeon playoff games, I just think back to. I think it was the first one was the Bears Saints, and I saw some of it and was just like, no, this is an abomination. There's too much, and it's too. I mean, maybe again, part of it is targeting the audience for kids, and so I can't really speak on how it really works for kids. Maybe kids enjoy it more. I do remember, I think it was that first year on Nickelodeon when I don't remember who it was, but I think it was one of the Bears players walked past the ref and dropped some expletives close enough to the mic for it to pick up, and it ended up on Nickelodeon, which was just hilarious.
Funny. That's
for
just
me.
That's just.
But I don't know how I feel about the whole Nickelodeon coverage of it.
I don't care as long as it's entertaining for kids.
Yeah, it's not going to be where I'm going to be watching it. That's what I will say. But if it works for like parents and their kids, all power to them. More money for the NFL.
Literally, yeah.
But the impressions is it's funny. I love when they mess around a little bit. Obviously, there's too much. That's kind of what you get with the Pro Bowl when they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go really hard on just the funnies and the cool stuff."
Just fine.
Make it. Don't force it.
Yeah, don't never force anything. But there. What was it? So, what do you think? What will happen in the Super Bowl? Like, what do you think will be the most likely thing to happen in the Super Bowl? Like, are you thinking game-winning drives, amazing catches? For example, like Nick Bosa getting 2 or more sacks during the game. Like, what do you think will be the most? What will be most likely occurring, I guess, during the Super Bowl? That's like guaranteed, I feel like.
The Super Bowl concerns me.
In what way?
In that it might be a really bad watch. It might, and I know I've been trashing the Chiefs because they haven't been a good team.
No.
But then they keep proving that they still win. And so maybe that's gotten them, for some reason, it's gone from the Chiefs are like underdogs and they're like, oh, they're not actually that good. They should lose this game and this game. And it was that way with the Bills and the Ravens. But for some reason, once they made it to the Super Bowl, it completely flipped. And it's like, oh, the Chiefs are going to demolish the 49ers. Or not maybe demolish, but they're going to, like, everyone's like, oh, they're going to win. And I'm like,
nah, you realize that the Niners are built for Super Bowl or bust. Like, they're going to play their hearts out. Not only that, they have a hugely stacked roster that just blows my mind how they were able to assemble this roster in the first place. So, I mean, my pick is for the 49ers to win, but the thing is that with all that talent on both sides of the ball on the Niners side, I don't know how they're going to match that up on the Chiefs, both offensively and defensively.
But that was the case. I mean, Bills were injured a bunch, but that's been the case, is that the Chiefs were not the better roster. They were just being outcoached. And it wasn't by necessarily bad coaches either. Yeah. So it's can Shanahan hold it together? Now, I will say I think there is a good chance that this is a game. There's a couple reasons why I could see it being a blowout in the 49ers' favor. One, it's the 49ers have a better roster. But two, the 49ers are, I mean, we've seen what they look like when they play angry. Mm-hmm. Like when they played against the Eagles earlier. Yep. And they just destroyed. This is redemption.
This quite literally is redemption.
And the Chiefs are coming in here like, we're looking at back-to-back. Meanwhile, 49ers are like, we're getting what we fucking earn. We're earning that back. And also, it's just like, we also just saw the 49ers break two of the molds that they'd been put in the past 2 weeks, which is they can't come back and win. Mm-hmm. They came back and won against the Packers. Yep. And then they played the Lions and came back from a significant lead, yeah. And so you got that, so you can't even like most of the time it'd be like, oh, if the Chiefs can get out to an early lead, then they can, reel this in and they can win because the 49ers don't do well. But
unfortunately for you Chiefs fans, the Niners have proven the entire world wrong, which is scary because it's like if they can come back and win those games, it's just how, like, in either situation, the Niners can win this game.
49ers, yeah, they've proven the past 2 weeks that even their weakness is not really a concern for them right now. Like they've overcame that the past 2 weeks. Right now, it's like the one thing that makes them, the one thing that you can point to and be like, oh, that's scary, is like that's not even. Yeah.
See, the way I see it is, if the Niners win, it's because great roster. And just that, literally a great roster that has a great coach. They have a great scheme and everything. They've had a great season. They've overcome narratives. They got that going for them. If the Chiefs win, it's because coaching, because Andy Reid is really good at coaching. Utter tomfoolery from Mahomes and Kelsey. And that's basically a bunch of bullshit, because it's like the Chiefs are good. I'm not going to deny that. It's just they're not as good as other teams this year. And then I did see this point online where, oh, the Chiefs are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. What chip on their shoulder? The fact that they were.
It's probably just because they're the AFC team. It's like we've mentioned before. They're the dynasty right now, and everyone's rooting against them because they're a dynasty. Nobody wants to see them win. Some people are okay with seeing the 49ers win. Nobody wants. Unless you're a Chiefs fan, no one really wants to see the Chiefs win. So that's the chip on their shoulder. But it's like part of it is also.
You did this to yourself.
Well, it absolutely is. They did it to themselves. But it's if you're in their situation, it's like we need any inspiration to win. Mm-hmm. So it's even if it's making like false narratives or really laying into bad narratives, they're trying to get anything to pump them up to go and play. Yeah. So, I mean, fair. It's just it is silly when you sit there and you're like, who you? Not really. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, you're the favorite. I mean, it's weird because as far as bets go, last I checked, the 49ers were the favorites on the betting lines, but most people I hear talk about it are like, Chiefs are winning. Chiefs always win. Yada, yada. And I'm like...
Chiefs haven't won everything.
No, but...
They're not the Patriots yet.
They've... I don't know. I can see why it's like, why go against the Chiefs at this point when they've proven that just even when you think they're going to lose, they still win, and it's like, okay,
Because it's fucking bullshit how they win.
yeah,
It's utter collapses from every team they faced, and I don't understand. Because it's like they should have beat the Chiefs, but they didn't.
I think again, it's gonna be interesting. We're probably gonna figure out really quickly what kind of game it's gonna be. If it's close, I don't think it's gonna be a super entertaining game.
No.
I think you're gonna see like just one of those more low scoring, boring games.
I swear to God, if we get another Super Bowl 53, I will actually go crazy because I do not ever want to repeat that Super Bowl. That was one of the first Super Bowls I've watched, and I was like, "This is so boring." Oh my gosh, it was so bad.
Yeah,
I think the first Super Bowl I watched was Patriots and Seahawks. That was the first Super Bowl I ever watched. So I got to see the rebirth of the Patriots dynasty in full swing.
yeah.
So, and then I saw all of that up until now. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting because it's like the Chiefs can make a dynasty, but there's like a lot of qualifications with like what qualifies them to be a dynasty and everything like that.
I'd argue they're in a dynasty right now. They haven't missed an AFC Championship game since 2017.
Yes, but I feel like if you're going to be a dynasty, it results in Super Bowl wins right now. I think if they win this one and they win like next year's or the 2 years down the road, then I'll say it's a dynasty. Because in my opinion, dynasties are either 4 or more Super Bowl rings in like a certain period of time. The Cowboys, the Steelers, the Niners, the Patriots, all of them had Super Bowls within like a certain time frame. Yes, the Patriots were a little funky because like they had like 3 right away and then they just had that slump and then they got back to another 3. But my point is that I don't qualify the Chiefs as a dynasty yet because there's still a lot of things that can happen. Not saying that they won't be. It's just I won't be sitting here and saying, yes, they are a dynasty as of right now. But they definitely do have the potential. And I'm not going to avoid saying that they are in the future because they will probably be a dynasty. So I guess that's how I view things. Yes, consistency is a huge thing, but also how many Super Bowl wins do you get out of it? Because that's the ultimate prize, right? Because that's what you play for.
Well, this was going to be my caveat is like not just how many wins do you have, but like making it to the Super Bowl that many times is also I don't know. There's different ways you can look at it, but getting to the AFC Championship that many years in a row, they're going to their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then this would win them their 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
In my book, like, even if you won 2 and went 4 years and went to that many AFC Championships, it's like you're still that's the team to beat. And if you're the team to beat for that amount of time, in my book, that's a dynasty, especially if it's still like going forward, like that is still the foreseeable future.
Okay, if you're going to go with that narrative, what about the Buffalo Bills in the 90s?
They didn't win a Super Bowl.
Okay, but they went to basically 4 Super Bowls straight and they didn't win anything, but if you're going with the narrative that consistency and everything and going all the way to the Super Bowl, then why aren't they a dynasty?
Well, they did it 4 years. I don't remember too much how they were before and after, and I don't remember their regular season performances. But they went to 4 straight, lost 4 straight, and then haven't been to one since. As far as I'm concerned, they're still, at that time, were one of the teams to beat, at least in the playoffs. Is like that is a team to beat.
Yeah.
As far as a dynasty, no, because they didn't win any Super Bowls, and again, it was 4 years, and you didn't win anything.
Yeah. And I guess it's just, if you're going with the logic of the team to beat, then you can say that about a bunch of teams over the last 5 years. You could have said that about the Eagles last year. You could have said about the Niners last year and the year before when they were still, well, not the Niners 2 years ago, But I guess my point is, if you're going to go with the narrative that they're the team to beat is a dynasty, or like that equivalates to being a dynasty, then you're going to have this like, oh, but what about these people? So I don't know. It's just.
But how many teams are consistently the team to beat for such an extended period of time? And again,
So,
it's not
like,
just
that's another point.
It's not just like, oh, up to this point is like that was the Chiefs dynasty, but I think you're in the Chiefs dynasty.
Yeah,
It's because it's looking at it. It's not looking at it retrospectively. It's like you're in the dynasty.
You're in the dynasty.
This is how long, how much longer is it going for? Is it 2 years? Is it 6 years? You don't know, but you know that this is probably not going to be the end.
Yeah.
But this is a dynasty.
Yeah, but then let's just say the Chiefs do win the Super Bowl and then don't get back to one in like the next 6 years. They don't get as far as they used to. Would you still call that a dynasty?
Well, see, that's where it gets interesting because you look at it's comparing it exactly to the Patriots, which is
I'm just saying that like if they win the third one this year, but then don't get back to it for like another 6 to 10 years, or at least to the championship for the next 6 to 10 years, like that's another thing. It's just if you're in that logic. What about the Packers in the 70s and 80s when they had several Super Bowls? Not back to back, but they definitely had a few in a certain time frame. Like, they're not a dynasty. The Giants had a couple or a few at a certain points in time, but they weren't a dynasty.
Giants have been spread out.
The Giants are not.
There are people that would argue that the Packers have had several dynasties,
which I don't think is right because that's not a dynasty. A dynasty is consistency over a long period of time in a certain time frame. I feel like
what do you define as a long period of time? Because long period of time in sports is much different than like it. A long period of time is hard to measure in sports because like 5 years in some regards is a long period of time. Sustaining a good team for a really good team for 5 years is hard to sustain, so that could be considered a long time.
Okay, well,
so
it's not that hard because it's like, no. Because if you're going to make that argument, then it's super easy to pick out that the Niners, the Steelers, the Cowboys, and the Patriots, I guess specifically the Steelers, Cowboys, and Niners, they had those Super Bowls within like, was it 5 to 6 years of each other, at least for each of those dynasties, because it's like, I don't know, that's a bit of time right there. So at least in that time frame, they were dynasties. It's just as of right now, it hasn't been long enough for at least for me to declare them as a dynasty because they, like I said, Super Bowl wins mean something. That's the whole fucking point you're in the league for. I do not care how much you've been to the championship or even the Super Bowl. You got to win them. Sure, if they win this one, then it's like, okay, well, maybe they are a dynasty. If they win like another one a year or two down the road, I'm like, yeah, they're a dynasty. There's no refuting it at that point.
Well, yeah, for you to have a team that can win I would say 2 Super Bowls in a short period of time and again, there's a lot of caveats because it's not just do you have rings, because not that many teams are able to go out and be like, oh yeah, we have like 5 Super Bowl rings in this amount of time. That is insane. But it's getting some Super Bowl rings, but also how many Super Bowl appearances in that time, but also consistently winning your division, high seeds in the playoffs, making it to AFC championships, making it in the playoffs is like you can't, because if you want to look at it, it's like what if a team won 3 straight Super Bowls and then didn't go back? What do you count? Or what if someone goes to the AFC championship and even the Super Bowl a couple times, but over like 10, 15 years, but they don't win a single Super Bowl? It's like, where's the middle ground? Or what if a team goes undefeated in the regular season, several seasons? Like, there's different things, and I don't think there's an exact measurement of what it is, but it's just being consistently one of the best teams for many, many years.
Okay. Well, then if you're going to go with that logic, what about the Denver Broncos of the 80s? They were in several Super Bowls. They won 2 back to back. They also were very good for a very specific long time. They just didn't win a whole lot because they were in the reign of the Niners and everything. But I guess what about them? Because that's not a dynasty right there. That is not a dynasty. A dynasty is consistent Super Bowl wins in a certain amount of time. That is not a dynasty.
Well, but your argument, again, you're comparing it to, like, there are teams that only get, like, 2 or 3, like, 5 Super Bowls is a lot of Super Bowls.
Yeah. I guess my point is there have been several cases of that happening over a period, for like the entire NFL history. There have been several organizations that have had more than 3 Super Bowls wins in a specific amount of time. I guess my point is that if that's the narrative that we're going for dynasty, then the Chiefs haven't made it yet. That's my point, is that if there are already 4 dynasties in the past, 5 decades, that's the standard for the dynasties. Everything else, in my opinion, does not count as a dynasty because that is the standard, at least in my opinion.
Okay, but you're going to look at it and because again, you cannot compare. It's unfair to compare anything to the Patriots because the Patriots had the most probably dominant dynasty because it was for the longest period of time and the most Super Bowls in that period of time. Yeah. But if you look at like.
Let's see here. So between 72 and 79, the Steelers had 6 AFC title game appearances in 8 seasons, 4 Super Bowl wins. That's a dynasty right there. That's what I call as a dynasty. The Cowboys from 92 to 95, 4 NFC title game appearances in 4 seasons, 3 Super Bowl wins.
See, but that's 4 seasons, so that goes against your argument of a long period of time because that doesn't even reach 5 years.
I'm just looking over the last few years in the Chiefs' like history of records and everything because I'm going to go back to this argument saying that the dynasty implies continuity. Basically, the more winning seasons you have over a long period of time with Super Bowl titles, the more likely you are going to be a dynasty.
It's. I'm saying there's not an exact science to it. Is like
no, I'm just saying
because if you're
going
to count the Cowboys as a dynasty, if you're going to count that Cowboys dynasty as that, but you're also going to count the Patriots as one dynasty, even though they had that 10 or however many year gap of not even winning a Super Bowl, which is like. Yeah, it's hard, whatever. But there's not an exact math. It's kind of just a consensus of the league and, like, what's going on around the league. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a dynasty. It could be winning 4 Super Bowls in 4 years. Or was it 4? Yeah, 4 Super Bowls in 4 years. Or at least going to 4 Super Bowls.
I think so, yeah.
Something like that. It could be that. It could be winning a handful over 10 years. It could be tying for the most in an organization over the time of your dynasty, which I believe would, right? The Patriots have the most Super Bowls in the shortest amount of time, right?
The Patriots got there in the quickest time.
20. So, yeah, shortest period of time. It's like, that is significant, but that's a much different way to look at a dynasty than the Cowboys in 4 or 5 years. However many years. It's like, there's not one way to look at it. And so it's kind of just a consensus, and it's obviously not an exact science.
No, it's not. But I guess looking through like dynasties and everything, just seeing statistics and everything, I guess if they do win it this year, yeah, they're a dynasty. That's for sure. It's just not in my opinion, not right now, because they have to prove that if they can win this year, then in my eyes they are a dynasty. It's just I don't like labeling random tenures for teams as dynasties, because in my eyes it's not a dynasty, because there was this one site that had like the Dolphins and the Commanders dynasties in whenever they had theirs, if you even call those dynasties, which I do not. Cowboys are, Patriots are, Steelers are, and the Niners are. No one else has had a dynasty yet. If the Chiefs do win this year, then yes, they are a dynasty. If they don't, then no. Not yet, at least.
I don't know.
You can disagree with me as long as you want, but that is my stance.
I know. I'm just saying. I think regardless of if they win or lose, I think they're still claiming. I think they are still
the team to beat, and they're still like the dominant team in the league. But that doesn't mean they're a dynasty yet.
I would argue that until they like. To me, I view them as a dynasty, and we're stuck in it right now. We'll see how long it lasts. I don't think you'll see Tom Brady level of length of dynasty. He's because again, it's not going to be. He's not going to repeat.
I'm not gonna hold to any dynasty being the Patriots dynasty, because that was just. I don't know why that lasted for so long. Sure, it was Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, but I guess my point is that I will not hold the Patriots as the standard to being a dynasty. What I hold as a standard to a dynasty is the 70s, 80s, and 90s Cowboys, Steelers, and Niners. Niners, Steelers, and Cowboys, yeah. Because those are, at least in my opinion, what you would call a dynasty. But I digress.
Yeah, even like the Cowboys level, which again could be like, we could see them go to 2-3 more Super Bowls, win 1 or 2 of those, and then they'd be like, oh, that's a dynasty, and then they could start to fall off, which I would be like, please, can they just make it short? Just don't. The thing I'm dreading is that it's as bad as long as the Patriots were, because that's like that's my dread.
We don't want another Patriots.
I'm okay with the dynasty if it just
to end,
as long as it's not as long, because and I think that's what the issue with our generation growing up, as far as looking at it as sports, is like, oh, we only knew one generation or one dynasty. It was the Patriots and Tom Brady, and you sat there and you're like,
yeah,
just not again. If like people will complain about a dynasty because that's our experience.
That was our experience. Nobody wants another Patriots dynasty, and nobody does, except for their fans. And that's why when the Patriots, when they lost their dynasty, when they lost Tom Brady, and now they've lost Belichick now, but when they lost Tom Brady, they were so eager to like continue the dynasty, which is fine, because like that's what you want as a sports team. But then they started to suck, and they're like, what? But I thought, and yeah, it was just like, everyone is going to go through really good years and then really bad years. The fact that their good years lasted for 18 seasons was kind of ridiculous. I guess Patriots fans are now getting a taste of everyone else's medicine, because everyone else had to suffer from Tom Brady for 18 seasons at New England.
Yeah, but yeah, I think our generation was just, we're a little cursed by dynasty. We hear dynasty and we're getting flashbacks.
I hate thinking about another dynasty, because it's like, we need to have something different. Sure, dynasties are cool in retrospect, but like, we need to have something new, something fresh, something that's not like, oh, it's just them again. No one wants to watch the same damn thing every single year, is my point. And that's why I got tired of watching the Patriots being in the Super Bowl all the time. Sure, I appreciated the greatness, the success of that dynasty and everything, but it was just getting so annoying to see them in the Super Bowl every single year. They were good and everything, and that's fine. It's just like, wow. I wish we could have a different Super Bowl, because this is like annoying to watch. It was the same thing with like Alabama in the college football retrospect, because it's like everyone hates Alabama because of how successful they have been for a long period of time and how many championships they've won over their program, specifically in the last 2 decades. Nobody wants another Alabama. Like that's everyone's issue. It's like no one wants to sit through another damn year of the same team going to the Super Bowl or national championship or whatever over and over and over again. It just gets bland. Yeah. Sure, it's fine because success is success, and it's fine to watch and admire all these teams being really good for such a long time, which is it's hard. It's hard to do because you have to continually build that roster, continue to have the same coaching style. It's consistent. It's a whole thing, but I don't know. I guess my point is that Chiefs they're basically there. It's just when they win it, and I'll just be like, yeah, they're a dynasty. But I don't know. But
it's
so
we're gonna deal with a couple more years of suck, and then maybe, hopefully, just not another 10 years of suck. But getting back to the actual game this year, just covering in general. I think it's an interesting matchup. Like I mentioned, it is one that kind of concerns me because I don't think the Chiefs have the offense to get out to a big lead.
No, because you saw how they struggled against the Ravens.
Yeah, and the Ravens they were one of the few teams that could argue that they may even have a better defense than the Chiefs did. So
yeah.
There's that, and I think the 49ers defense is good. I don't think it's on that same level.
No.
But where you're looking at it, and it's just like seems the mismatch, because you were mentioning that you think it's just roster difference, which obviously there is a roster difference. The Chiefs have a better defense, but their offense is
not as good.
They have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and then a few other names, but
Pacheco.
They're not on the same level as the 49ers. And I think the 49ers, I think where my concern for a blowout comes is not only that the 49ers have a good run offense, which is the Chiefs' weakness on defense, and you're going up against one of the best running backs in the league, if not the best running back in the league. My opinion, the best running back in the league.
No, I agree with you on that one.
And it's the Chiefs' defense, at least from what I saw against the Ravens, is they're really good at shutting down your receivers, even your tight ends, but
the run game.
But there was the run game, but also when you looked at the Ravens, what actually got their offense at least started to go in the second half was it started with checkdowns to the running back. And we're doing that with Justice Hill. We don't have a Christian McCaffrey to check down to.
You do not have one yet.
So it's gonna be really interesting. And maybe their defense adjusts well and you won't see them put up 30 points. But if the Chiefs offense struggles like it did against the Ravens, even a little bit, and the 49ers find the weakness to the Chiefs, it's gonna be a blowout. But if this is why I only see two options here, is either that or Chiefs get some points, but their defense does a really good job of containing the 49ers. Or maybe the 49ers offense maybe it's more of the same stuff and the coaching debacle happens and the Chiefs just take control. It's going to be a boring game.
It is.
Is there a possibility for the Chiefs offense to actually figure it out and it's an interesting game? Maybe, but I feel like from what we've seen, to me, it's just not going to be, it doesn't seem like an interesting game to watch. It's either going to be low scoring, not good offense, a lot of just punts. And I'm all for defensive games, but defensive when it's not shitty play calling and just not bad offense. I like good defense. There's a difference between good defense and bad offense. Both can result in low scoring games, but there is a difference. Now the Chiefs have a good offense or a good defense, but at least against the Ravens, it was bad offense, especially management, bad offense. And I either see that and the 49ers lose to the Chiefs in very boring fashion, or the 49ers don't let the Chiefs fuck with their minds and they actually run a consistent offense that gets them maybe even like 24, 27 points, but like it's 24 to 10 or something. Like it, but it's going to be like either the 49ers running over the Chiefs or the Chiefs keeping it really low scoring. Is there a chance that the Chiefs make another comeback? Sure. Is it possible that the Chiefs go up 17-7 in the fourth and the 49ers show that they can still make comebacks and win 21-17? Sure. But I think that's probably going to be like, I think either way, it's not one I'm super excited about.
And the thing is that like I've learned to not, or at least over the years, I've learned to not count Patrick Mahomes out of anything. So it's not that I don't believe in the idea that it's going to be a blowout in the Niners' favor. It's just, it's either, in my opinion, it's either going to be the Niners are going to blow the crap out of them, or the Chiefs just somehow click like they have for the past 2 games and just win the game because Mahomes and Kelsey, maybe Pacheco and a couple other players, but like that's literally your entire offense. If you can't stop them, they're just going to win. And it's not that they have a lot of huge names on offense, particularly besides Kelsey, Mahomes, Pacheco. It's just, I'm not going to count out the Chiefs from a Super Bowl victory, especially with how little Mahomes has worked with in the past, or at least this season. Because like for a while he was struggling because his receivers couldn't catch anything. There was mishaps on offense, the schemes and everything. But now they've put it back together, and I don't know. It's either going to be a blowout for the Niners or it's going to be a close game. The Chiefs still win though, because the Niners will keep it close.
And that's the thing that's super. On paper, it looks like a 49ers win, but at the end of the day, because of how the rosters are stacked, it's just Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan.
It really is.
Which I think Kyle Shanahan hasn't beaten Andy Reid, but it's like this is your best opportunity because all you have to do is not completely shit the bed.
Yeah.
You have the better roster. You just need to pull your guys together and call it a solid game, and you can win a Super Bowl. You're not going up against one of the super teams. You are the super team left. Yeah. They should be more of a favorite than they are with how things look, in my opinion. But it's coaching. It's going to come down to coaching, I think. And could that make the game close? Yes. Could it make it a blowout? Yes. Could it make it a blowout either way? Yes. Because
it's the Super Bowl. Anything can happen.
It's gonna be. I keep wanting to say it's gonna be interesting, but I don't know. I'll be watching.
I'll definitely.
You got some. You got a score prediction to put on this one?
And that's the hard part. It's the score prediction, because anything can happen in the Super Bowl. But all right. I gotta think about this.
You want me to go first then?
Yeah, you can go first. I'll think about mine.
This is I don't like it because, like I said, I'm basically split on whether it's gonna be like a blowout or a really close but boring game. But I feel like the 49ers have shown that they're not going to be as incompetent. Praying, hoping. And if that is the case, it could be. I don't know. I'm feeling like 31 to like 14, which
that's fair.
I mean,
it's a fair score.
But it's also like looking at it as like you can't even argue that Mahomes hasn't lost like that because he has to Brady.
Yep.
In the Super Bowl, that happened, and he had a much better team when that happened. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm feeling 31-14 area.
Let's see here. I'm going to go with the score of 31-24. That was not piggybacking off of you, but that was more of a. I am going to be under the assumption that the Chiefs will somehow keep it close. I am not going to discount the Chiefs are having a blowout. If it happens, then it's whatever. But I think the Chiefs in this scenario will probably keep it close for as much as they try to, but the Niners will pull away with a victory. So
if the Chiefs,
I don't see it being a blowout. Like I can, but I can't see it out of like 100 tries kind of thing. Like it's not gonna be like that.
It's not gonna be super common, like a super popular outcome. It's not gonna. But I feel like it's just like it's one of those hundreds, and I feel like that's kind of just where I'm leaning as far as how it's gonna go. Mm-hmm. Now, could the Chiefs turn the 49ers into the next Atlanta Falcons and make that sort of comeback like the Patriots did?
If that happens, it will go down in meme history.
The Falcons will be like, yes,
we're not alone.
We're free. This means that we're redeemed, right?
Or they flip the script. Shanahan comes back down from a huge lead against the Chiefs and wins the Super Bowl.
He's like, you think we can't come back?
34-28.
He's like, you think we can't make a comeback? You don't think we can come back?
Watch us.
17 wasn't good enough for you? Fine. 28-0. No, even better. 35-0. We're going to win this one 42-38. We're going to make the magnificent comeback. Guys don't even play in the first half. We're starting the backups. We're going to fuck them.
It would be very funny if Shanahan did come back and win a Super Bowl, being down like albeit like 14 or more. I think that will be hilarious because it's like funny. The choke artist finally doesn't have that label anymore, or at least this year, but every other year basically. But
yeah, it still applies.
He still has it, but in this season, if he does that, then he won't be labeled a choke artist. So we'll learn from his mistakes is my concern. So
I think that kind of wrap up that Super Bowl because I feel like we got that fleshed out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, NFL honors is I want to gauge put in some predictions and then we can kind of recap them next week, as well as the actual Super Bowl. But if you were we'll play this as if, because I'm assuming you don't want to actually do any money.
No.
But like you were to put like $20 on each award. We'll go down the line with MVP. Who do you think? Not just like who you think will win it, but also who you think deserves it. Who's your MVP?
This is annoying. Because it's like if I choose one, then it's like, but wait. I think for the people.
The
MVP should go to Christian McCaffrey.
You don't think it will, though?
No, it won't. But I want it to. I feel like Christian McCaffrey will get it in a perfect world. We do not live in a perfect society. Honestly, I think MVP might go to like... I don't know.
It's got to be between two.
I think if you're just looking at stats specifically, Allen should get it.
Oh, but they don't look at just stats.
I know, that's my point. If they just look at it from stats, Allen should get it.
Although his interception numbers are a little high.
That's what I'm saying. Stat-wise, for the most part, it should be fine. But if we're looking at the entire season, in my opinion, Prescott doesn't get it because he beat up on weak teams all year. Purdy is better than Prescott in the sense that he's played against tougher opponents and has still won, excluding the Ravens in that Christmas season debacle. Lamar Jackson, I say I feel like he would. I think he might get the MVP if people just don't remember the playoffs, because during the season he was doing fine. I mean, sure, he wasn't putting up like the greatest numbers or anything, but
even looking at the playoffs though, it's like, I mean, he carried in the Houston game.
Yeah,
it was 1 week, and I think, but I also don't know how much they look for MVP race. I don't know how much they actually look at like the playoffs. I feel like a lot of it is more towards the regular season. But even looking at the playoffs, it wasn't Lamar's fault really. You look at other factors when it comes to that loss, but
yeah, I guess whoever gets it will have an asterisk next to it, right?
Well, yeah, because
that's another thing. Because if Allen gets it, interceptions. Lamar Jackson, the playoffs. Christian McCaffrey, he's not a quarterback. Dak Prescott, beat up weak teams. Purdy, check down machine. I don't know. Like it. There's always going to be those asterisks.
I think as far as performances go, and I made this argument earlier in the year, but it's kind of one of the weaker MVP classes.
It is. Like, it's really hard to pick.
Which is why earlier in the year I was like, oh, this is a year for a different position. And then Tyreek Hill kind of slumped towards the end of the regular season.
Well, he also got injured, didn't he?
Well, yeah, that's part of the reason why he slumped. And then Christian McCaffrey kind of he had a couple down weeks. And then he had a couple up weeks, and he's just kind of, it's hard to gauge.
He's been consistent. That's why I want him to win it. It's because he's the most consistent out of those.
I want him to win because as far as like, not just like, well, if you're comparing like best at their position, easily Christian McCaffrey.
That's one.
Like as far as talent above anyone else at their position, Christian McCaffrey. Because who are you gonna argue right now? Who are you gonna argue is better than Christian McCaffrey?
No one.
It used to be Derrick Henry, but his age plus his surgery kind of has brought him down. And then I don't even know who else was an elite running back this year. Saquon kind of, but they didn't use him well.
He also got injured, didn't he?
He was injured for a bit. Jonathan Taylor was injured more.
Jonathan Taylor was injured for a while. But yeah.
He's more like as far as space between, because you look at receiver, you could say Tyreek, but there's still Justin Jefferson, who was injured, yes, but you look at that, like, he's not that far. He's very good, but can you argue that he's the best? As like, you still have Justin Jefferson in there.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is the only one that you could be like, oh, he's probably the clear-cut best quarterback in the league, but this year he was not.
No.
And I don't know. Christian McCaffrey is, again, by his position, the most dominant.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is that running backs don't really get MVP votes. And I think it's because it's hard to compare running backs now, because running backs used to win in like the 2000s, but they had a completely different standard because there's a completely different league. What is the standard for a running back to win in this league is the question. So, in my opinion, it's Lamar or Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy did very well, and I think he could get one in the near future. Dak was in a position where he could have, and then he also started not to play well.
He also beat up against weak teams. That does not get you the MVP, in my opinion.
Yeah, but it's also like, it's hard because you can't really. It's hard because you can't put that against them. Because you can't.
Oh yeah, you can.
You can't count against. So if a team goes 17-0, but they have a weak schedule, you're gonna look at the guys who played well even against weak teams and go, you don't deserve anything because you played against weak teams. It's not their fault that the schedule laid as it did. So that was the argument with the Eagles last year. Is it was like, oh, the Eagles have the top seed, but it's, oh, they played weak teams. It's like, yeah, their schedule was weak. What do you want them to do? Reschedule? They can't.
No.
It's hard to fault them. Now, the issue, I will agree with, the issue with Dak was that he didn't only have weak teams. He played stronger teams, and just utter collapse. But his play dropped towards the end of the year. Josh Allen just I don't know those three. To me, it's Lamar and Christian McCaffrey, and it's just which is funny because even when you're looking at a quarterback, it's the least quarterbacky quarterback.
Yeah,
and one of the most versatile, and it's a hard argument to make, especially because some people will argue that MVP should be because it's most valuable player. Some people will argue is like you could take Christian McCaffrey out of the 49ers and they would still win.
Yeah.
And it's like, but if you take Lamar out of the Ravens, no shot.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It's a hard argument, and I'm not saying that is the standard at which you should look at MVP, but it is a factor.
It is definitely a factor. So
I think if I were to place money on it, I think Lamar wins because he seemed like the consensus towards the end of the regular season.
Yeah.
I would love to see Christian McCaffrey win. I can't. It's hard for me. I'm indifferent as long as it's one of those two. I'll be fine because I'm like, oh, a running back, someone who isn't a quarterback, or Lamar Jackson. What? I'd be happy with it, and I wouldn't even argue that I wouldn't say if he doesn't win, I won't be like, oh, he got cheated. But if he wins, I won't be like, oh, he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Either way, as long as if it's one of those two, I'm happy. If it ends up being any of the other three, I'm going to be like,
no.
Brock, it's the wrong year. Dak,
no.
He maybe get one soon if he fixes it a little bit. Josh Allen, I think, also deserves one. He might end up like a Russell Wilson, though, where he's always like right behind whoever wins. But he needs to, I don't know, if he had a complete offense all year, maybe he could have. But
okay,
my MVP is, probably Lamar. Offensive Player of the Year.
I'm going to say Hill. Yes, there were a few games that he missed, but if Hill doesn't get it, then then probably McCaffrey.
I'd say Hill or McCaffrey, and I'm leaning towards McCaffrey just because of the injury. If Hill had played more and broken that 2,000-yard mark, I would say but
that's honestly a fair argument, though.
Defensive Player is the one that is probably the most difficult to choose.
It is because it's like, yes, they're all good, but also for some reason this year there wasn't any clear cut like this guy. Same thing with the MVP. Like in my opinion, there's no like this guy is the Defensive Player of the Year.
I heard a lot of Myles Garrett, but I think Max Crosby deserves to be in there.
I think Max Crosby gets it.
I've heard some people say DeRon Bland just because of pick sixes, and I'm like, that's a really cool.
I hate that.
But to be fair, Defensive Player of the Year almost always goes to a pass rusher. It is like the equivalent of MVP quarterbacks. And I'm like, I kind of would like to see it go to someone who isn't just a pass rusher. But it's hard to make an argument, and I think DeRon Bland, I mean, it's a really cool stat. I think pick sixes alone is not enough. I think Trevon Diggs with his just pick alone, but then his coverage was also weak, which is your issue.
That's my point, Bland. Is that if you're going to give him the Defensive Player of the Year, he's got to be good at most things consistently. So
yeah, he's a good pick artist, but I don't think he wins that.
No.
Then you have T.J. Watt, who was like the main point on that defense, and then maybe Micah Parsons, but I don't think it'll go to Max Crosby. I think he is underappreciated, but I think he won't. I think because of that, he won't win it. I think he deserves a little more praise. I think it's probably between Miles and TJ.
No, that's fair.
I don't know who I think would win though.
It's hard.
I don't know. I'm gonna go with Miles just because it seems like he was the consensus all year. But I don't think it would be Micah. I don't think this is his year for it.
No.
I think he maybe comes back next year and maybe gets it. But I would say between Miles and T.J. Watt, and I'm gonna probably say Myles Garrett because he was he's the strongest point on one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
So
I will say for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
It's two candidates.
It really is. Who do you think it is?
Stroud or Puka?
Stroud gets it.
Just because he's a quarterback?
No, it's just because he did very, very well and nobody expected it. So
Okay.
same thing with Nakua.
Nakua was what, a 4th round pick?
Something like that, yeah.
But he also did very well. He broke 2 rookie receiving records.
Which is also a good fair point. So
So
I don't know.
both did
If either
phenomenal.
gets it, then I'm okay with that.
It'll go to either of those two. It'll probably be C.J. Stroud just because of quarterback bias. I wouldn't hate it too much. I feel like it probably should go to Puka because I feel like C.J. showed some weaknesses. I think Puka was a little more dominant, but I think it'll probably go to C.J. As far as defensive rookie of the year, I don't even know who's in the running for that.
Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Joey Porter Jr., Kobe Turner, and Devon Witherspoon.
Devon Witherspoon.
Really? I think Will Anderson.
He was all year. He wasn't a big factor. I don't know. He picked up pace towards the end of the year, but Witherspoon he had a really strong start to the year. He was like the clear cut. I would argue the clear cut favorite like by the midway point in the season. I don't know how well he did. I would go Devon Witherspoon. I think he was the best corner coming out. I think he played the best out of all the corners in the draft, and I don't think any of the D linemen really played better. So I would go with Witherspoon.
Okay. Comeback player of the year is going to be.
It's gonna be. I hate this argument because it's between two people really.
I want Mayfield to win it.
I would love for Mayfield to win it. I don't think he's really in the conversation for it though.
It's either gonna be Flacco or Hamlin. It's stupid.
It's going to be between Flacco and Hamlin, and I will argue that Flacco doesn't deserve it because he didn't play a full season. He came back.
Flacco?
He played a couple weeks.
Hamlin didn't get to play the entire season.
Hamlin played the entire season.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything.
He was on special teams. But it's an award that generally is favored towards injury. And so Hamlin is my bet who would win it because Flacco did not play enough to, I think, really warrant it. If he played a full season, I think you'd probably see more weaknesses. So I would say Hamlin probably will win it. I would love to see Baker win it because I think as far as if you compare comeback player of the year to like what you saw with like Gino, because who won it? Did Gino win it last year? Who won it last year?
I think so. Gino won
it. That's basically what he had except he's not as old as Gino when Gino did it, but that's the sort of resurgence you saw. Is like you saw him get traded to the Panthers, career crashed after leaving the Browns, ended up on the Rams as like emergency quarterback, really fizzled out, and then ends up with the Buccaneers. Thought they didn't even know if he was going to win the starting job over Kyle Trask. And then he came out and led them to the divisional round. I'm like,
no.
Honestly, that's who I think should win it based off of comeback player of the year. If you had an injured comeback player of the year, and I don't know what you would consider the other one, but like actually play based, Baker wins this one. Sure, DeMar gets this one. This is like here you win a trophy.
Yeah,
here's a trophy.
Coach of the year. There's only one answer, and it's Dan Campbell.
I disagree. You have D'Amico Ryans and you have Kevin Stefanski.
Dan Campbell.
I don't know about that one.
Oh,
you also
keep your opinion.
But that's
keep your opinion.
Stefanski.
I'm not saying that the other two aren't good. It's just I prefer Dan Campbell.
Well, okay, we all like Dan Campbell. Yes, Dan Campbell was the one I want to win it. But you have Stefanski, who led the heavily injured Browns to be one of the most feared teams going into the playoffs. You have D'Amico Ryans, who did the 1 year turnaround of the Texans, who went from probably one of the worst teams you've seen in the better half of a decade to a team who made it to the divisional round. Flipped a team as those two, I would argue. I have no idea how Coach of the Year voting goes, so it's hard to say. It could end up being as simple as it might just go to like Kyle Shanahan or something, which
just stupid. I don't like that.
I don't know how the voting goes. I don't know who usually wins those, so it's hard for me to tell. But as far as who I want, yes, Dan Campbell, because I love Dan Campbell. But I feel like maybe D'Amico Ryans probably wins it. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But
Right. Well, that kind of wraps everything up then.
Yep, we will come back next week and recap the Super Bowl, regardless of what happens and whoever wins.
Yay!
I'm ready for off season.
Yeah, so am I.
I'm ready to be done.
I'm done with all this BS.
I'm ready to be done so we can start getting ready for next season. Even though that means I have to deal with going until September without football.
Just watch the UFL.
Maybe that might be something I do. We'll see. But thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week to recap the Super Bowl for you, and we will see you then.
See ya.